Hi, this video is on angle relationships, and we're going to look at a few different angle relationships, and I'm going to ask you to fill out the graphic organizer as we go. So in your graphic organizer, you're going to be drawing three different kinds of angle relationships: supplementary angles, complementary angles, and adjacent angles. So in each one, we're going to write a definition, and we're also going to draw a sketch. So let's start with supplementary angles. So for supplementary angles, I'm going to draw a straight line to represent a straight angle. And in a straight angle, that would be 180 degrees, all the way from here to here. But supplementary angles are two angles that add up to 180. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that one straight angle and I'm going to split it up into two parts. So now I have one angle over here, and then I have the other smaller angle on the right. Now those two angles added together will be 180 degrees. So here I've written in there the definition of supplementary angles: two angles whose sum is 180 degrees. They don't necessarily have to be touching to be supplementary, they just have to have a sum of 180. So what that means is, let's say the one angle, here I'll write in there, let's say this larger angle is 100 degrees. That means the smaller angle must be 80, because when you add them together, you should get 180. Alongside of supplementary angles are complementary angles. And complementary angles have a similar type definition, and there's a reason why we have the graphic organizer the way that we do. See how the supplementary angles, I don't know if you noticed, but they take up this top half. So if I had a circle and I cut this circle into two parts, then this top half would be 180 degrees. See, because all the way around is 360. Now, to make the supplementary angle portion of this graphic organizer, notice that we took a fourth of this circle, and that would be 90 degrees. So we use that on purpose to highlight or to demonstrate complementary angles, because complementary angles add up to 90 degrees. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a right angle inside here. And I'd like you to do the same, draw a right angle. And then I'm going to divide that right angle into two parts by just drawing another ray right there, okay? So now I have a smaller angle and a larger angle. Now, they could actually be equal. I mean, you could divide it down the middle, but I purposely made them different sizes. So complementary angles, I'm going to write the definition for that next. So here's the definition then for complementary: two angles whose sum is 90 degrees. See how it's just like the supplementary angle, just a different number, different measurement. So let's pretend that, let's say this large angle here was 80 degrees now. That's not a very good drawing of 80 degrees, but pretend that's 80 degrees. That would mean the smaller part here would have to be 10 degrees, because they have to add up to 90 degrees. Okay, so we have two of them down. Now we're going to talk about adjacent angles. Adjacent just means next to. So this just means next to. And you can have two adjacent angles that are touching. Both of the pictures we have here are angles that are touching, and they share a vertex. But sometimes in shapes we call them adjacent angles as long as they share a side. So I'm just going to draw two angles like this. They don't equal 90 degrees, but they're next to each other, and they don't have to be the same measurement. They just touch. That makes them adjacent. That's it. And then there's one more relationship I want to show you, and that's vertical angles. So to demonstrate that, we're just going to draw a straight line and then another straight line intersecting that line. And you can draw it any way you want. Vertical angles are the two angles that are made that are across from each other when the lines intersect. And whenever you have vertical angles, like this angle is vertical with this one up here. So this angle measurement equals this one. So whenever two lines intersect, they create 4 angles. And the ones that are diagonal from each other are always congruent. So this angle equals this angle, and the larger angles, the obtuse angles, equal each other. So the 2 acute angles are congruent, and the 2 obtuse angles are congruent, and they're called vertical angles. And I remember it this way because they kind of like make a V and their butts touch. I say their butts touch. So they share a vertex and they have the same measurement, and that's what makes them vertical. So what you'll notice is you'll be given examples where they would draw a diagram kind of like this. And what this is telling me is, in this diagram, is that this little box here tells me that this is a 90-degree angle. And these 2 angles add up to 90 degrees. So if I know that this angle is 32 degrees, and I'm trying to find this one, then I know that if I add the x degrees and 32 degrees, that should equal 90. And then I can solve that equation to find the other angle. So now I've solved that equation and I know x equals 58. That would mean this angle here is 58 degrees. And I can check that because I can say 32 degrees plus 58 degrees. Add those together, do they equal 180? Yes, they do. So there you go. So that's the kind of problem you might be given, or a different one could be maybe something like this, where you have these 2 lines that intersect and they create 4 angles. One that's 140 degrees. There's a one diagonal to it. That would be its vertical angle. And then these 2 red angles that are also vertical angles. So created those 4 angles. Now I know since this angle here, and this angle here are both the obtuse angles, then they are congruent because they're vertical angles. So that means they're both 140 degrees. I would also know that since the red angles are the 2 acute angles, they are vertical, so they're also going to be the same measurement. And then from here, I'd say, well, how can I find them? Well, probably the easiest way would be to notice that this straight line here would be a straight angle. And so from here to here would be a 180 degrees. So that means that y plus 140 should equal 180. They're supplementary. And then I can solve that equation. And I found y equals 40 degrees, so that would be 40. And since angle y and angle x are vertical, that means that x must also be 40 degrees. And that makes sense because if I look below here, I notice that there's another straight angle from here to here. And see how now those 2 add up to 180 also. And if we're really gonna like get technical here, I can see, oh, if I look at this straight line, see this straight line, this straight angle now, that goes from here to here, and see how that adds up this 40, this 140, and this 40 degrees, and they would also equal 180. And of course, all the way around, it would be 360. So that's the kind of problem you might be given, and see how you're tying all those angle relationships in together. So here is that graphic organizer again with the different angles. And hold on to this, put it in your reference so that you're able to refer to it as you try some of the problems. It's kind of difficult sometimes to remember which one is supplementary, which one's complementary. I've heard some people use this saying, it is right to give a compliment, meaning like it's polite to give a compliment, so it's the right thing to do, and they make right angles. That's one way people remember it. Some people point out that complementary comes first in the dictionary before supplementary, and so complementary is the one that's 90 degrees. And that supplementary comes second, so it's the one that's 180 degrees. And sometimes people do that with the S. They make like an 8 out of it. I don't know. It's kind of hard to remember which one's which. The best thing I can do is just tell you, just keep practicing, keep checking them, maybe make flashcards or just, make little reminders for yourself. But, we'll hopefully do enough of them in class that it'll start to sink in which one's which. Okay, well, hopefully now you have the notes and you have an idea of what kind of problems you'll be given to start off with, and you'll be able to navigate through this. Thanks. Have a great day.